right now, there's this quiet but incredibly high stakes race happening all around us. And it's not about land or resources, it's a race to write the rulebook for artificial intelligence. We're seeing a handful of global powers scrambling to define the standards for how AI works, and believe me, the choices they make are going to fundamentally change the future of free speech online. So it all really boils down to this one huge question. As these AI tools become part of our everyday lives, are they actually helping us express ourselves more freely? Or are they becoming the new bouncers at the door of public conversation, deciding who gets in and whose ideas are left out on the street? To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to lean on an amazing new report from the future of free speech. It's an independent think tank, and they've done a massive deep dive into how different countries are trying to solve this exact problem. It gives us this incredible, on-the-ground look at the front lines of this global regulatory battle. All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the core problem. Then, we'll check out a global scorecard of who's doing what. After that, we'll really dig into the two big competing ideas, the American and European models, before we look ahead to what's next. Okay, so what is the actual problem we're talking about here? Well, the report hits the nail on the head by framing it as AI systems becoming our new algorithmic gatekeepers. And these aren't people, making editorial choices. They're complex, automated systems making huge decisions about what we're allowed to see and say. Yeah, this quote right here just sums it up perfectly. The real danger isn't some malicious, super intelligent AI trying to control us. It's much simpler, and maybe even scarier. It's a lack of transparency. It's a lack of clear rules. Without those, we're basically handing over the keys to our public discourse to a black box. And look, this isn't some theoretical, far-off future problem. It's already happening. Researchers found that just last year, the major AIs were already being way too cautious. They were playing it so safe that they ended up blocking perfectly legal speech and shutting down important, controversial conversations, all in the name of safety. So, with all this happening, how are governments around the world responding? This is where it gets really interesting. The report put together this fascinating global scorecard, actually ranking countries based on how well their AI laws protect free expression. Every country's trying to walk this incredibly fine line, right? How do you encourage all this amazing AI innovation and stop real harm without completely crushing open debate? This ranking gives us a fantastic snapshot of the very different answers that are starting to emerge. Okay, now take a look at these numbers. What's absolutely wild is the range. You've got the United States at the top with a nearly 94% speech protective score, with the EU right behind. But then just look at the other end. China is sitting at 12%. This one table shows you everything you need to know about the deep, deep philosophical divides on how the world thinks about technology, government, and individual freedom. Let's start at the top of that list with the United States. The best way to think about the U.S. approach is like a fortress built on one single, incredibly powerful idea, the First Amendment. And that phrase right there is the absolute key. In the U.S., the government is not allowed to be the speech police, period. The law doesn't just protect ideas that are popular or good, it protects all of them, even the ones most of us would find offensive or completely worthless. That one principle is the bedrock for every single debate about AI regulation in the country. So what does this look like in the real world? Well, instead of one big AI law, you've got this messy patchwork of different rules from different states. The real action is in the courts. That's where they're battling over these massive questions. Like if Section 230, that's the law that protects platforms from what users post, even applies to stuff an AI makes up. The whole philosophy is about keeping the government's hands off, creating that legal fortress around speech. Okay, now let's hop across the Atlantic to number 2 on the list, the European Union. And if the US built a fortress, the EU, well, they wrote the entire instruction manual. It is a completely different approach, and it all centers on this concept they call systemic risk. So what on earth is systemic risk? Think of it like this. The EU's new laws are basically telling the biggest tech platforms and AI models, look, you guys are so massive that you can cause society-wide problems, like the spread of disinformation or hate speech. So it's now your legal duty to proactively find those risks and fix them. It's all about preventing harm before it can even happen. Now, this approach means that certain kinds of speech, especially things that could be considered defamatory or hateful, have way weaker protections than in the US. Platforms can be held legally responsible if they don't get a handle on these systemic risks. The big worry, as the report points out, is that a vague term like disinformation could be twisted to pressure companies into taking down speech that's perfectly legal, just politically unpopular. So this is the fundamental clash right here. The American fortress starts with the individual, and its core mission is to protect your speech from government control. The European rulebook, on the other hand, starts with society, and its mission is to protect all of us from harmful content. One is terrified of silencing legal speech. The other is terrified of dangerous ideas spreading. It's two completely different ways of looking at the exact same technology. So where does all this leave us? Well, it brings us to a future that is very, very much still being written. And it's no exaggeration to say that the regulatory models being forged in Washington and Brussels today are going to have massive ripple effects for the rest of the world and for the very future of democratic conversation. And the report closes with this really powerful challenge. And it's not directed at governments. It's aimed squarely at the companies that are building these incredible tools. The question is, are they going to treat freedom of expression like a PR problem that needs to be managed? Or are they going to treat it like a core value that needs to be protected right in the DNA of their systems? And really, that's the ultimate question I want to leave you with. In this new world, who gets to be the final editor? Should it be governments setting the rules of the road? Should it be the tech companies who design the algorithms? Or should it be us, the people actually using it? The answer we all decide on won't just define the future of AI. It's going to define the future of the public square itself.